I'm John. I'm a city planner. I love transportation. I'm Solomon, aspiring Ruby developer. Graduated from the starter school.
Hey, it's you. Want to say hi?
Hello. From the city.
I'm Louis Canaya. I'm John.
I'm Melvin. I'm a Python aficionado.
I'm Maggie. I'm a data analyst at UFC.
My name's Scott. I do digital marketing, but I'm here out of just curiosity and learning more about data development.
I'm Claire. I'm an interaction designer at the University of Chicago.
I'm Drake, and interested in learning to program something.
Boom.
I'm Juliana. I'm an undergraduate at the University of Chicago.
I'm Nina Sandlin. I do data science at Illinois Health Matters.
I work for YFP and I'm an intern at Smart Chicago Tribune.
I'm Ryan. I'm a developer at the Investigative News Network.
I'm Alex. I'm an assistant editor with Trib Apps, and I like GIS, design, data analysis, programming, all of it.
I'm Alex Richards. I'm a reporter at the Chicago Tribune.
I'm Cloud. I'm a software developer. Just checking it out.
I'm Jesse. I'm an experienced designer across the hall.
Jim McGowan with the American Red Cross, do situational awareness and trying to encourage our organization to embrace open data.
I'm John Lanzalone, also with the American Red Cross in our disaster program.
I'm Will. I'm working on a project to make research more accessible to the public.
I'm Rich Cornish. I'm a freelance designer and developer.
Hi, I'm Eve. I'm a former teacher and teacher trainer, now doing EdTech design students.
Hi, I'm Melinda Cheezick-Roard. Points to anybody who can pronounce that later. I am a software engineer with a background in astrophysics.
Hi, I'm Colleen. I'm a high school computer science student.
Hi, I'm Cynthia. I'm also a high school student. I'm Manali. I'm a high school student on the robotics team.
I'm Jesse. I work at the Northern Trust, and I'm interested in programming and open data.
I'm John. I work in GIS.
I'm Tina. I work for Ford City, a real estate development company.
I'm Ben Gluski, Java architect for the STA group, and I've worked for many years in finance and also in the cooperative business model.
My name is Steven Vance. I'm a transportation reporter with Streetsblog, and I run the transportation Breakout group.
I'm Charles, and I'm an aspiring business planner.
My name is Bob Woodley. Been in finance many years, interested in building apps for CPS teachers.
I'm Elizabeth. I'm a project manager in an ad agency and interested in education.
My name is Muhib. I'm new to the IT field, and I'm trying to get my feet wet.
I'm Tony. I'm a data analyst down the street of the Burnett. I've been on the mailing list for I don't even know how long, so I'm stoked to finally be here.
Yeah, this is my neighbor here is Steve.
Yes.
Is that right? From Microsoft? How'd I do? Developer, and he likes free data. He wants.
All right. In the right place.
Hugh,
you already said hi, so that's you.
Jonathan, I just finished a boot camp, and I wanted to check out the Chicago tech scene.
Hi, I'm Matt. I do sales operations, sales support at a media technology company, and I'm just here because I know a lot about you guys and interested to participate.
I'm Ben. I'm a PHP and JavaScript developer, and I like coding, and I like Chicago, so here I am.
I'm Josh. I'm a technology education, and I'm a biomedical researcher also.
Missed a few people.
Hi, I'm Nick Mader. I'm a senior researcher at Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago. I focus on child and family welfare data. If anybody is a C++ programmer and has 30 lines of code that they can offer me, that'd be great. Come find me later.
30 lines or less, or like exactly?
I'm pretty sure it's 30 lines.
on the head.
Do you miss anybody who didn't get to say hi? We get, I think we missed
I'm
you.
Mark Blake. I've got my own company. I'm a wireless network engineer / telecom specialist.
Oh, Sonia, did you say?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Sonia. I work for Smart Chicago.
And then this guy.
And
You
my
unplugged
name,
yourself.
I unplugged myself. My name is Christopher Whitaker. I'm a civic technology consultant doing work for Code for America and the Smart Chicago Collaborative. We just got the ability to do YouTube Live, which means we're now straight from the YouTube channel. I'm not having to mess with Google Hangouts, and eventually I will have multicam abilities. So I'm very excited, but this is the first kind of test run we're doing. So I'm being both the mobile studio and the host at the same time, and so I'm like, I need to clone myself. So I'm working on that. But welcome, and we're glad you're here.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome everybody. So as you, oh, why rate yourself? You missed it.
I'm Joel. I'm here from California to check out the texting. We have one.
I'm Karen. I'm from here actually, and I'm a developer / attorney working in security startup and interested in startups generally.
Cool. Awesome. Welcome. Great. So moving on to announcements. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share with the group? Hand in the back.
This is marginally related to open data and things like that, but the Metropolitan Planning Council is working with Alderman Ray Colon up in Logan Square to think about and plan for the redesign of the Station Plaza where the Blue Line gets out. Our workshops will start on September 9th, and there'll be 3 of them on the 16th and 30th as well. These are open workshops, and I really invite anybody who lives in the Logan Square community or who is interested in Logan Square in general to come, because it's an interactive process that's all about trying to get people to engage directly into proactively planning for this site before any development ideas come out. So I'll leave some postcards right out here on the table.
Cool. Awesome. Any other announcements? Yeah, Carl.
Sure. Open Tech Strategies is looking for part-time web developer, just hourly work. We only do open source, so it would be on open source code. It's very standard client-server web app. Talk to me before you talk to Nick Mader. I'll make you a better offer.
So I run this website that tracks building permits in the city, and ENDs has helped me recently get 5 years worth of property tax assessment data. And so we're figuring out how to release that because it's a really large file. It's hard to understand, so you kind of have to educate people and bring them into the fold. But Chris, could you? We don't need to do it.
Show the website?
Yeah. Well, no, I was going to show what kind of data is being like displayed. It's from the Cook County Property Info portal.
Oh yeah, that's a great website.
So essentially, we scraped 512,829 pages.
Is
that all?
Well, there were like 15,000 invalid property identification numbers, but
that's the one.
so this website is kind of like an aggregate of the Cook County Recorder of Deeds and the Cook County Assessor's Office, and it tries to tell you as much about a property anywhere in Cook County, and so we now have that in one file instead of 512,000 files or pages. So if you would like to use that in your own research or applications, you can ask me later.
You know, it'd be cool if you could merge that data with the parcel shapefile data that they release.
Good idea.
Just
Very little to do with open government hacking, other than maybe as a way to finance your open government hacking. The group I worked with is putting together a proposal for doing a real-time trading application, and they're desperate for someone with like AngularJS or other client-side technology skills. So if you're looking for a position, come talk to me.
Cool. You guys should like just duke it out in the hallway. Anybody else? Announcements? I have one I just wanted to share with everybody. Chicago Public Schools just launched a redesign of their website today. You want to go to that, Christopher? Just cps.edu. I think a few of our education facilitators are actually out in the hallway already working on stuff. And they're actually like looking into some of the things behind this big change, but they completely redesigned everything. There's a new logo, which is apparently designed by 2 CPS students, and then they took their 2 different logo designs and like merged them together into one. That's their new logo. And then as you can tell, it's like, sparse design. So I don't know. I don't know too much about how they built it or what they did, except that now they're using Bootstrap for responsive design. I saw that. And I'm actually trying to find out if anybody knows if they hired an outside vendor or if they did this internally. Because I know they have a dev team that could have done this. And if they did, that'd be pretty cool that they were able to do it on their own without having to hire an outside vendor. So I'm just curious about that if anybody knows.
Look at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, they don't say. So, and sometimes I checked there. Sometimes the vendor will like put their logo on the bottom or their name on the bottom, but not in this case. Could mean no. So anyways, check this out, and I'm sure they'd love feedback. Any other announcements? Okay, well, I guess in that case, we'll get to our feature presentation. You guys wanted to switch your laptop, or plug your laptop in, right? Okay, so we'll do that really quick. Maybe one of you guys, while one of you is doing that, you want to set up the just the whole report and all that stuff. And tell us why red light camera tickets exist. Oops. Alright, well, I'll leave it to Alex and Alex.
Great, hi. Again, I'm Alex Richards, not to be confused with my colleague, Alex Bordens, who invited me here to talk with him tonight after he had been invited to talk about the Red Light Tickets app, and I guess I will open this up as a reporter who works on this series. So I'm a reporter at the Chicago Tribune, work on the investigative desk, sort of specialize in data, that kind of journalism. Worked on a series a couple years ago related to truancy in Chicago public schools. Also worked on one recently related to the bond situation in the city and the school district. And so another colleague of ours, a reporter named David Kidwell, his beat, more or less, he's sort of a city hall reporter, but he had been focusing deeply on the red light camera program in Chicago. It's the largest automated enforcement program in the United States. Right now, they've actually reduced the number of cameras at intersections, but right now they're in the ballpark of 170 intersections in the city that are covered with a red light camera. They started installing them back in, I believe it was 2003, and then things really ramped up in 2007. And so David had been looking at sort of the background of this contract, how it came to be. He was the one who uncovered a very deep bribery scandal and how the city ended up getting this contract. About $2 million in bribes, some cash, some property had gone to a city manager named John Bills. And so he was very interested because there was so much skullduggery around the private company landing such a lucrative contract with the city, one that's been worth about, I think in fees they've made maybe $100 or $150 million. The city has raked in about $500 million in just ticket money from citizens who have run red lights. He was very interested in knowing if there were so many issues around landing this contract. Were these red light cameras working sort of as advertised? Were they working properly? So we set out to get a full database of all red light camera tickets that have been going back to 2007. The total of which was about 4.1 million tickets. Yes, and no, and that is one thing. We'll talk about this more in a bit, but part of that process too was the Tribune sort of going out, spending money to get this information, so we wanted to make it available to the public too. And so one thing about this app that Alex was instrumental in developing is the fact that you can just go to the website and download all the ticket data if you want to. So first ask the city through the typical Illinois FOIA channels, can we have the ticket data from Xerox, who is your vendor and retains all this information? They said no, it's a burdensome request. And so after demanding there, the Tribune got legal counsel involved. We had a very contentious meeting between city attorneys, the vendor, representatives from Xerox, and a few other individuals. And after a sum of money was spent and many months of wrangling, we finally got the city to agree to let Xerox give us a copy of all the ticket data. So once we had it in hand, it came in. It was a very narrow data file. It's essentially the citation number, the date and time of issuance, the tag number for the basically the license plate number, the vehicle type, the state, and we also got a separate data file from Chicago administrative hearings on anyone who had challenged the ticket, and then if they had challenged the ticket, what was the result of that challenge? Were they still liable for the ticket? Were they not liable for the ticket? So we took, it basically came in as a big text dump. We took that, and I took the text file, moved it into a MySQL database, and started working with it there. And so once we had the data in hand, then it's a question of, okay, we have 4 million records. What are we going to do with this? How are we going to start sort of sussing out patterns and identify issues? And so we, when we first got the information, we did some very obvious stories like, here are the people who have racked up the most tickets. And there were a handful of people who had gotten like 60 tickets in Washington, something like that. And we went and talked to them, and it was good, but it was sort of like an enterprise-y news story, but it wasn't really that investigative in nature. So when we started, we were sort of trying to plot out, okay, like how can we take these records and sort of see what's going on? And we sort of came up with this idea of, okay, well let's plot out the tickets by day, sort of like a heartbeat for each camera, each intersection, to see if there are any anomalies. So we did some reformatting in MySQL to basically take what was a flat file and reconfigure it so that it was basically a daily count of tickets by intersection, and also counting up all the instances where the ticket was liable. I took that data and basically migrated into R, which is, I'm sure some of you are very familiar with. I'm a total novice with it, but I managed to write a script that basically pumped out what you see here, just in a static form, just using like a basic plot function for all the intersections. And then we had done some some data analysis to identify extreme outliers, real highs that did not comport with the average number of tickets that were spit out by these cameras on a daily basis. And so we ended up identifying about 20 intersections that looked something like this. And this is not how sort of the issuance pattern of a red light camera is supposed to look. These things are sort of designed to alter behavior. So when a red light camera is installed in an intersection, you would expect like a huge number of tickets at the very beginning, slowly tapering it off over time as people modify their behavior and basically stop running red lights because they don't want to get a $100 ticket every time they do it. That's what it's supposed to look like. In reality, we found a number of intersections with insane spikes, like the one on the previous page. camera that was issuing maybe like 2 or 3 tickets a day was suddenly spiking up to about 80. And not just for a single day, but over a period of time, and then dropping back to normal like nothing had happened. David and I took all of this information, we took charts, we took raw data, we put it in front of the city, and they, in the end, they were able to throw out some suggestions. Well, maybe it was traffic pattern changes, maybe there was an event at the United Center. And so we sort of struck those down one by one. They really didn't, and they still don't have an answer for why these were issued. So we wrote a story about how we found tens of thousands of drivers who essentially got undeserved red light tickets in the city of Chicago. And a lot of the people who are in these spikes presently are all having their tickets, or have gotten letters from the city. They're all getting their tickets reviewed by the city if they wish. And so that, and then the only other thing I did before we sort of get to the app was we took these data files, we wrote a Python script, basically pumped the MySQL tables into JSON, which drive the bulk of this.
So are you saying that you looked at the relationship between the spikes and the contested tickets, for example, and saw that relationship there?
Yes, that was one thing. If you jump to, for some of these, like Halsted 119 is a good example of those. If you look at the appeals, like the contested tickets, it's kind of hard to see here, but the rate, not only the rate of which they're contested, but also the rate at which they win are dramatically higher than anything else in the universe. But the thing is and this still looks very low, right? But if you don't appeal, it's like if you don't play, you can't win. Like if you don't appeal, you're never gonna get a chance to be found not liable for your ticket. Most people, for $100, they're not gonna spend hours of their free time to go contest a ticket downtown. Yes.
This data set only shows when the red light camera actually activated and got someone's license plate and issued a ticket. Did they snap photos of all the drivers going through the intersection?
No, it's sort of
Do you have that data? Because that would be hugely important here.
Right. Well, I mean, it's sort of they use an algorithm to sort of predict who is, because they don't take a picture of every person who goes across. They use like an algorithm based on a car's speed to assume if they're going to go across.
And the cameras aren't counting how many cars.
No, that gets thrown out. So what we have is the end result. So they determine that a violation has happened. There's actually a person who verifies the images. Redflex has a whole room of people who do something like that. That information gets sent to the DMV, so it gets hooked up with the actual driver's information, and then in turn that gets sent out in the form. That comes back to the city, and then the city actually issues a physical paper ticket in the mail. So we're seeing the end result of that. These are actual tickets that were issued, not anything else. And so that makes sense. That answers your question.
Excuse me. Do you know if the city of Chicago has taken your information or your results and fed them back to Xerox to find out if in fact there's some correlation between what they're obtaining or what they're providing to the city? Because I would think that by just looking at your results here that they could certainly say, well, let's start putting a cap on number of tickets per camera or something to that effect, so that if it goes beyond a certain level, that there should be some.
I do know one thing. Like we did go. David and I went and looked. So you can actually go online and look at images, like images and video for many tickets. We went and looked at these, and so this spike's a good example. The behavior was very different for a spike like this. So almost everyone caught, and I can't remember if it was this specific spike or another one, but almost everyone was suddenly being caught for right turns when before these cameras would issue only maybe one right turn on red ticket a week. And as far as what the city did to get this worked out, they're still working on it. We gave this information, they sat on it for months. We don't really understand what they did, but they were not able to give us any satisfactory answer about why this was occurring. Yes.
How do you know they're undeserved tickets? Like, were people caught for being outside
Well,
the letter of the law?
I'd say you know. I just spilled water.
get like some, normally do you get some leeway, like if it turns red, you're like almost right through the intersection, it's fine, but then like this
Well, when we
time
say
it's more
undeserved, it's
strict.
because, when we say undeserved, it has nothing to do, it's not deserved in a legal sense. We're talking about, I mean, there's obviously something wrong at these cameras. A lot of people are being found not liable for their tickets. The appeal rates are much higher. A lot of these cameras during spikes were, they were capturing people who, who had maybe gone through an intersection many times without issue. We're talking about deserved in the sense that they're behaving the same way and suddenly they're being caught for tickets. It's not, we're not talking about it really in a legal sense. Because after looking at it, hundreds if not thousands of these red light tickets and videos, I can tell you that sometimes between us at the Chicago Tribune, like multiple people looking at these things, we could not come to an agreement on whether or not that person actually broke the law or not. It's very hard to tell.
Can you see where their car is when the light turns red or yellow?
Yeah, the video is very small. You're at sort of a weird vantage point. You're very far back from the intersection where those cameras are. It's very difficult to tell, honestly.
So have you correlated like employee records with, so because the final judgment is being made by a person, right? So the algorithm may be triggering that amount all the time, but then different people are more lenient than other people.
Again, we posited many things to the city. They posited many things back at us. We were never able to find a satisfactory answer, and it's still being worked on now. So many hands up. Yes.
Oh no, it wasn't.
Or behind you.
Did you try the correlation with events or like construction to see if there was multiple stuff at a certain area? Like
Yeah,
was there any
we
ability
looked
to do
around.
that?
There weren't construction events. There weren't special events going on. I mean, a lot of these intersections are on like, they're scattered all over the city. They're not near like even really high traffic areas anyway. So yeah, we couldn't find any explanation that was sort of outside the intersection that would cause that. Outside of like, there was one instance where a lot of people were getting flagged for tickets, where they forgot to turn the red light camera off when the signal was down and people were being waited for. But even then, they were still issuing tickets and about half the people never appealed those tickets. Yes.
I assume, are you in touch at all with Xerox directly about this, or do you have to go through the city?
We have to go through the city.
Yeah,
Vendors won't talk to a newspaper directly.
But what seems to me like a very likely plausible scenario is that Xerox is just tweaking their algorithms. They're just trying, like if you said that it's not a
We asked about
hard
that.
and
We
fast thing.
requested information, correspondence between, and Xerox is their vendor. It was actually the company Redflex that maintains this end of it, like the actual equipment, monitoring the images that come in. Is this a violation? Is it not a violation? And all that. Xerox is just sort of the back end keeper of the data. And I want to let Alex talk about the actual app too, and stop running my mouth for a second. So.
Sure. Well, you're talking about kind of the more interesting part of it. The goal for the app was to serve kind of two things. One was to let people figure out if they were tagged during one of these spikes, and the other was to explain to people what these traffic charts actually mean, what these patterns mean. So the top entry points to the app are entering an intersection, and I'll just I remember. Right, so it'll take you to that particular chart. You can toggle between all these different things, showing how many were appealed, how many tickets were issued. You can use the little slider to zoom in on particular areas, because when you get closer you can tell all right, well they just didn't issue any tickets right here, so kind of what's going on there. Which is particularly interesting when you start to look at some of the higher spikes. The other option is to put a license plate number, and I kind of cheated and grabbed one early. Yep, you got pinned in one during the spike. And then it also will list all of the tickets that were issued on that particular day, the result of the appeal. If you want to, you could grab the information from this table and go off to another site and enter in and be able to see the video and the photos of you potentially running a red light or not running a red light, depending on what was going on. Then the second part of it is explaining how this whole thing works. I already kind of clicked on it to spoil some of it, but so showing an initial pattern of how this is how a camera should work. Basically, you see a bunch of tickets in the beginning, then people smarten up and realize they shouldn't run the red light. Then you see another intersection like Alex kind of talked about, Halsted and 119th, that shows that obviously there's something different happening. A little bit of description about why you should care about that. And then this last part shows you how many people actually appeal these things. And then the reason why you don't see a success rate on there is you can probably imagine trying to navigate through 3 different levels of data on the same bars would be kind of confusing. So we kind of limited it to the kind of simpler format for everyday user. You can also click on one of these kind of worst intersections that we flagged. It gives you the details as well. And then as I was kind of flashing earlier, you can just go ahead and download all the data. I don't recommend trying to open this in Excel. It'll probably kill your computer. So the kind of technology behind this, the chart is just D3 drawing off JSON. The ticket data that's displaying in these tables, and that's kind of indicating some other points on the chart. We use this kind of internal storage database type of thing called Panda, and there's a way for you to essentially use it as a backend for your apps. And the rest of it's just Twitter Bootstrap and some CSS.
You said Panda, is that like the Python pandas?
Yeah, the Brian Boyer Panda.
No, I think you're talking about the Python library for data analysis. This is a different thing. It was developed by, really by Brian Boyer and Chris
Groskopf, yeah.
Groskopf at the time when they were at the Tribune. It's sort of like an internal database manager for newsrooms for like things online.
Yeah, essentially set it up and you can upload your data to Panda. It allows everybody in the newsroom to be able to look at it. It allows kind of like an archive of all this information. I know when I worked on the graphics desk, I would deal with census data on a regular basis, and it got to be a real kind of pain to be able to download it from the census all the time, when instead we can just stick it up on Panda, and it's internal, we can get to it right away, we can run queries on it, we can kind of do whatever you want with it. So that's what we're using in terms of to run queries to get this information out. And it is responsive, although if anybody's trying to do like heavy data journalism or data anything on a phone, it sucks. It's kind of hard. Data visualization on a small screen is a challenge.
Do you have a sense of how the engagement with something like this compares to how many people read the article versus?
Yeah, this story did exceptionally well for us. I mean, it was a premium story, which means that basically you have to pay for it or get to it through social media. And I think we had well over 100,000 people with page views on it, which is a crappy metric, but it's a metric. Within the first, I think, 48 hours or 24 hours, something, which is exceptionally high for a story that you expect people to pay money for. In terms of how the app performed, we're looking at about 60,000 page views and about 70,000 hits to the database within the first week. So people were using it, and people that follow David Kidwell, who's the other reporter working on this, they were tweeting at him saying like, hey, I got busted in one of these spikes, here's my story, that kind of thing.
Did you look at like safety data for intersections and compare them to like looking at whether intersections with the cameras got safer, or even if the spikes?
And that's a whole other
that's
so complicated I can't even tell you. But
the city inspector general actually did that. They took a look at issue reports on the website of right turn collisions, I think it was, versus red light cameras. So that's the purpose of these red light cameras is that they're supposed to reduce collisions.
When in turn you essentially trade one kind of accident for another. You trade an angle crash, like a T-bone, for a rear ender, which are generally less severe, but still, I mean, there's a lot of debate about whether or not these things actually make driving safer.
So you guys have looked at it? Do you have the data of like intersections?
We did years ago for.
Yeah, it's something that we can talk to some of the older stuff that we've done.
Yeah, so a few years ago when the city was pushing the speed cameras, we you know, the mayor says like, well, it's gonna make it safer, you know, everyone's gonna be happy. And so we looked at red light cameras in relation to pedestrian accidents, and essentially like there wasn't any real significant difference between crash change at an intersection or pedestrian incident change at an intersection compared to, that had a red light camera compared to one that did not. And that's pretty much like the norm across the country, is that pedestrian crashes are going down, pedestrian incidents are going down. So it's not necessarily that you can attribute it to red light cameras, though it's really easy to want to.
Wait, so say that again, is that, it's, the norm is it goes down, but not here, is that what you said?
Well, no, they're going down here too. There's no correlation between decline at red light cameras compared to other intersections, which is a national trend.
Or a faster decline in the years after the cameras were instituted?
From what and this was a couple years ago, from what I remember, it was pretty consistent.
I wonder whether there's correlation between that decline and the increase in the number of public bicycles.
Oh, the Diddy system?
Sponsored bicycles.
Enough pedestrians are, pedal cycles accidents are all in the city.
Yeah. Get a bunch of tourists riding city bikes.
As more people are riding city bicycles, maybe the car drivers are being more cautious on the streets.
So one of the, I think, unintended consequences of being tagged by one of the red light cameras is that you get this ticket which you may or may not be able to pay or contest or whatever. Have you guys done any follow-up with folks that are being tagged in one of these spikes to see if they have any follow-on consequences of that, if they say don't pay it because they think that it's wrong or something like that?
I mean, yeah, there's sense of collection, but it's really, like, you can't just not pay one of these tickets. Yeah, you can pay, or you can pay a higher amount later, but you will pay.
When you did the FOIA request and you said it was burdensome, is that a legitimate argument? Is it, or is it just something that they said they didn't want to do it?
I mean, in the end, I'm trying to remember like what the vendor actually said. So they had a representative from Xerox who said that ultimately the thing that made it burdensome was all the time that she and like a team of people would have to do like basically QA on the export from their system. And so, I mean, whether it's a good argument, I mean, I don't know. It's sort of hard for me to say. Like I, as a reporter,
Well, I was wondering what it was a legal standing for, like.
Oh yeah, for a FOIA panel in Illinois, absolutely. It's one of the exemptions is unduly burdensome. But if they do come to you and say that it's unduly burdensome request, they have to work with you a little.
Is this, I hope you didn't already say this, is this like a one-time dump of information you got, or do you have access to this information before you can?
We've gotten another dump since, so it was a one-time dump that ran through September, and then we got through March before we launched this. So we can go back, because I mean, I guess the script's already there, the framework's already there to generate this data again. So potentially in the future we can't keep an eye on it. We can't keep getting the data. It's not automated at all, that process. We can get it again and feed it into this and keep it going. We haven't really discussed how often we would do that.
So you have permission?
Permission?
Definitely.
We'll see. I mean, until they stop, right?
Can you make that data available?
Yeah, I mean, it would be available right
Oh, it's the new
there.
dump is in there.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's all there. If we got more, if we made another request to get more, we would just feed it right into this, and it would be available to download too.
Yeah. I know this hasn't been up very long. Have you guys seen any sort of, or heard anything about any sort of increase in appeals since this was published? Maybe.
I don't know. We haven't looked yet. We'll definitely probably tap into that in the near future to see what's going on and see how people are behaving. Because I mean, as you can imagine, people will really pissed off.
Yeah.
The folks that are in the spiked areas that have contested, do they get sent to a courtroom in the area that the light is located, or do they have to go to the city downtown?
I believe it's all downtown.
It's all downtown, so they have to go to downtown to contest it as well?
Yeah, it takes takes time.
Yeah.
So pretty much everybody in one of these spikes that we sent to the city has gotten a letter in the mail giving them the option to contest their ticket. About 16,000 of those have gone out.
Yeah, cause I guess the reason why I was asking is because, if there was some kind of, issue with regard to what was happening with the causing the spikes, if the money or the funding was going to the alderman's group that ward happened to be in for that particular camera, then that would make some sense, that would be
No,
a
I mean, as
reason.
far as I understand, it just goes into one big
Okay, so
pot.
one big
Yeah.
pot.
You might have already looked this, I don't know what the resolution on those timestamps is, but is it possible to, for example, demonstrate that it's, if a sequence of cars at a certain intersection they couldn't all have gone through the red light just because of the timestamps, some of them must have been outside the window? Like, if you know the red light cycle times,
right,
when it's doing that, and you look at the timestamps, you might be able to prove that these can't all be valid tickets.
Right. They generally don't issue in a series like that. Like there's even in spikes there's separation between the tickets and minutes. It's not like the three people in a row or.
But if you know the lights timing as well.
The city says that once it goes below a certain, I mean, it's like there's certain like standards for yellow light times. It's like depending on the speed, I think it's like 35 miles an hour or something like that. It's like 3.5 seconds. Below that, it's supposed to be a 3-second yellow light. And the city has said like once the timing goes below, if something's out of whack with the timing on a yellow light, that intersection will just go to like a flashing yellow or flashing red instead. So if something was out of whack with the yellow light, the actual intersection is supposed to go.
That's something a little more complex, but I can share it afterwards.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming. This is fantastic work. Wondering how you picked the 12 most traumatic spikes.
We were sort of the way we picked the most dramatic ones. We were just looking for. I mean, it wasn't that complicated. I'd say it was more art than science in some ways. I mean, we were looking for the spikes that were where you had ticket volumes that were just really far above like what the camera had been putting out daily for up to the life of the camera, which in that case that was 2009. But we were looking for the cameras that had like the worst outliers and like sustained outliers. So all these spikes, not one where it was just like the camera had a bad day. Like I don't think you could look at it this one where suddenly it goes up to issuing as many 80 tickets a day after averaging in the previous year probably about 10. I mean we were just sort of looking for the largest gap between them. And we actually we poured over graphs, like visually we looked at them and we looked through I think there are about 340 different cameras in the data. So this displays intersection level information. Most intersections have more than one camera. We looked through graphs by camera extensively, and picked the ones that we thought were crazy. And another thing is like when a camera goes out of service, sometimes for months or years at a time, we requested maintenance logs. I mean, there are none, or there were none. I mean, our request basically came back empty from the city. Maintenance logs, anything like that from Red Flex, they just weren't there. So there's just as much as this thing shows high highs, there's not really any explanation for when things just drop out entirely for periods of time, which is also not supposed to happen.
Someone unplugged it.
What's that?
Someone kicked the plug out, yeah.
Kick the plug or something.
Do you have the maintenance records from the city on the lights themselves?
We tried. I can't recall if we actually made that request on the actual lights. We were focusing pretty specifically just on the Red Flex maintained equipment because they're responsible for the cameras.
The city changes the timing on lights every season. Because they change the light.
Right. I mean, but at the same time, I don't see much seasonal variation in this data either.
Two spikes I saw were transition to summer, transition to winter.
I think you're in the third row.
Yeah. This is, I guess, more feedback about how the actual evidence is taken, but he brought an interesting point with the timestamp idea. That what if on the actual video evidence of, say, someone running a red light, it actually said, okay, it's yellow, it's timing out, and this is the exact moment it switches from yellow to red, and that would actually, and you could just show that to a judge and plus say like, look, the law is that I have this much time after the yellow ends.
It does, I guess that was a misunderstanding. If you look at the images, it does have a timestamp that length of yellow, and people have used that as an argument.
Oh, okay.
We did find yellows that were out of whack. But some of the yellows that was time stamping, like the time was like a fraction of a single sentence. It was a second, it was too low to believe. I don't think that was accurate.
Okay, so that data is actually present within the
It is, it's in the images. It's not something we have here. It's in the actual, you can see it in the images of the thing.
Hello?
Yes.
Were you I'm told by the alderman out in the 38th, I guess, that the cameras are always on, not the red light camera, but that the red light camera, yes, is always on, and that the picture then that you're getting from this flash is separate.
I mean, my understanding is, yeah, it's the.
Have you gotten the full camera feed?
Well, I mean, it's from what I understand, like the images are taken. They're stills from video that are pulled out. But as for getting the actual camera feed, that's only available on the Red Flex's photo notice website, and it essentially goes away after 120 days. It gets archived and then it gets destroyed after 2 years. And so we were not able to get videos of all tickets we wanted to because it amounts to a hell of a lot of video. I think more than we could reasonably deal with.
Were you actually able to get any of that recently though?
Some video when we made it clear that we were going sort of forward, we were going to publish this story. Some of the video some of the older video in spikes suddenly reappeared. So we've been looking at still images, and then video was up. I think see violation over 190 days. The video is no longer available, but you can still pay.
It's the one in the intersection.
Yeah, it's the one that's already through.
So it's red.
Oh.
What's
No,
red?
it's
The light?
The light. Yeah,
The light is red.
you see an amber 307 and then the red, and I think that's the time that it's actually been red when they pulled the frame.
And they're going 50 miles per hour.
Just trying to make it.
No, the limit's 30.
Yeah, the really hates the law, that one.
They were definitely trying to be more like.
Maybe they pinch the motor.
Yeah,
A lot of
it's fine.
times.
But yeah, well, this is great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks again to Alex. So I think we're going to stick around for a little bit if anybody wants to continue the conversation. So now is the time for the civic hacking. So the way that we do this is we have a bunch of different breakout groups that are led by certain individuals some of which have already identified themselves. But we'll just really quickly run through the different groups that are available, and each of the facilitators will make themselves known. And then we'll sort of break out of this room, and you're free to use the rest of the 1871 space, because pretty much everybody else is cleared out here by now, so it's all ours. The first one is for you new folks. Remember, I ominously planned, right? Christopher, tell them about the plan.
Hi. So if this is your first time here, if you are new to civic hacking, open data, open source, you like me when I first got into this thing, Ruby and Python are snakes and jewelry. This session is for you. It's a quick 15-minute orientation into sort of open source, open data, how these projects get done. It's meant to be short enough to where you can then take off to the other breakout groups. You can interrupt, that's completely allowed. And so this is designed to sort of get you what you need so you can interrupt the other groups. And that will be here in this room. We'll start about maybe like 5 minutes after, give everybody a chance to clear out, get some water, and then we'll start the show.
Awesome. So there are other groups. Steven, you want to talk about transportation?
Yeah. So we talked about red light tickets last week, so we got a new topic this week. Eli has been working on a project to collect the CTA's real-time bus tracker data, and he's going to show us what he's been working on, and then Yona will also be joining us because Yona has a specific use for that information. It's to track the effect of events on rerouting buses around Grant Park during like parades and marathons and the like.
Awesome. There's another group, New Coders, which I think Carl is here.
Is Damon Dromer's not here?
I don't know if Alex
Okay.
wants to come in.
So Damon and I are in no sense leading that group. The New Coders themselves are leading it, and if you were here to learn something about programming, you can be one of them. But Damon and I are here to like answer questions, help you get over obstacles and things, and very happy to do that for the time that I'm here. So find the other New Coders and try to sit at one table. That's a good way to do it. And there is a project underway currently.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, is there any, Randy, do you know about the project, or do you have any?
Renee.
Oh, Renee. Oh, Renee.
They mutinied last week. I was the leader for like 30 seconds. Yeah, you can come find me. We'll talk about the tab, the underrated tab key.
All right. Underappreciated tab key. All right, great. So another group, education. Josh is leading that group.
Okay. We've got one project we've been working on for a while now, which is looking at the admission process for Chicago public schools, especially high schools, and the different types of schools and different ways to apply. And there's also a second project starting up, which is starting to look at Chicago public schools procurement process and trying to build something that's more user-friendly and easier to kind of track RFPs and things like that and tie them actually to schools in general. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And then there's the environment group. Scott, I don't think is here, but Claire, you want to tell folks what you guys are up to?
Okay, so I am part of the environmental group, and I'm doing a project on recycling. Basically, they're recycling in 5+ unit buildings is, there's a law that landlords have to provide it, but it's not enforced. So I would say a majority of buildings don't provide that. So we are trying to develop a reporting mechanism, which is going to be in the form of a website app thing, kind of map out where there's the non-compliance in recycling, so people can report their landlord name, leave a comment, say, hey, we don't have recycling. We're trying to get this information out before the elections to sort of maybe conjure up some influence and change the law, do something like that. So we'll be meeting out by the water dispenser in the main place out there, lobby.
There's a vacant buildings group, and Gene, I think, sent an email to the group saying he wasn't going to make it tonight. So anybody from the vacant building group?
Gene has family obligations, so tonight he sends his regrets to the group. But if anybody has any general questions about the data portal or city data, I'd be happy to take it down and either answer it or get back to you. But the buildings group has a call.
Okay. And then social service delivery. Rose, what you got?
Hey, so we're really, really excited because it looks like tomorrow we're going to be pushing to Heroku, what we have. And just a quick refresher for folks who don't know, essentially we've come up with a pre-screening tool for people who are in need of food or education or other services. They can come to our site, Relief is the name of our tool, and you can kind of see if you are eligible based on 2 to 3 questions. So we're really excited about it, and tonight we're going to be working on the text component because although it's really great to do a lot of this stuff on the web, a lot of the communities that we're working with don't necessarily have access to the internet but have access to text. So we've been playing with Twilio all day. It's really exciting because I had my first like Ruby Twilio experiment for an organizing march I did today. So I'm just buzzing with excitement about Twilio. So if you love Twilio or like Twilio and want to help out, we'd love to get some help with that today.
Awesome. And then I believe the last one is our pension reform.
Yes, my co-conspirators aren't here tonight, but we've been looking at state of Illinois' pension problem. First step is admitting that you have a pension problem. And so there are 3 large pension systems in the state, and the state has been fiddling around with them and now has an $8 billion problem. And so what we're trying to do is to come up with a program that will allow you to explore, really understand what that problem is, look at some of the solutions that people are proposing, and perhaps play around with some sliders and say, well, what if I increase taxes by this, what happens to it? So right at the moment we're studying this fascinating document put out about the state university retirement system, which goes into amazing details about the problem. And so if you love that stuff, you know who you are. Come find me.
Great. And then also, if anybody just wants to start their own group, you can speak now.
Yeah, I don't know that this is actually ready to be anything, but it is a problem that I've been mulling over, which is that I have a house. My water valve, the city water valve in my yard had to be replaced. The water department said there was not enough space between my sidewalk and the tree, that they had to remove the tree. So they came out, they cut down the tree. The water department said, well, they didn't take the stump, so they took the sidewalk. So then they replaced the valve. So then they had to come replace my sidewalk. So then they replaced all the sod for a reason I don't understand. I'm still left with a stump, which at some point they're going to come and stump the tree because we've already put in that request, and they'll have to refill that in and resod that. How do we make all of these pieces talk to each other?
Yeah, one more piece they're going to come back after it's all sodded and planted, they're going to come back for another tree.
Yeah, exactly. That's right, because we've also requested another tree.
So that seems like 311 related, right?
Yes.
Like these are all different city departments that are in charge of each of these different pieces, right? So what do you, I mean, you got any ideas, or you stated the problem.
Right, I
don't
know, honestly, because I don't know what the access point is to these departments.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what, actually, 311 is relatively transparent about each individual ticket being opened and closed.
Right.
And like I get a text every time somebody comes and rips up my yard.
Right.
But I have to call them every time. They'll come and they'll be like, okay, well, we chopped down the tree. Right. Okay, but I called you originally about the water valve.
Right.
Okay, well, we replaced the water valve. Okay, but I need the tree back. Like, and so, there's been 5 or 6 calls to 311.
Right. So it's all this big ticketing system that they use, is my understanding. And when they close a ticket, that's one crew fixing their one thing.
Right.
And oftentimes what will actually happen, and this is actually something that Code for America fellows who were here in 2012 helped implement the Open 311 system that they use to send you those text messages. And there's actually a chain of events in some cases you can follow and say, okay, this ticket was closed or handed off to this ticket, and you can kind of see that chain of events. It's actually not, like, it's only in that one app that I've ever seen, the Service Tracker app, that you can actually see that relationship. And so a lot of the data sets on the city's data portal are, say, for all the pothole requests. But what you're missing under the surface is all of the things that aren't exactly pothole requests, like, cave sewers or all kinds of random stuff it could be. So there's a lot going on there, and like, I don't know how to fix that because it's all internal to the city, but it's certainly something to think about as far as like how could you make a system that makes it more holistic as far as understanding all the different pieces that have to go into fulfilling your one request, right?
Right.
So, okay, cool.
Just speaking to that for just a second, I think that's a really interesting topic, connecting those requests, because just as one example, my next door neighbor had a water valve, and they replaced it, and then they poured the path between the street and the sidewalk over the water valve 3 separate times.
I mean, maybe just start by collecting these stories. Like maybe there's not enough visibility that things like that are happening, right? Maybe that's at least a place Anybody else? Okay, well, thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks to Code for America for buying pizza. Thanks again to our presenters, and we'll see everybody again next week.
Social services, we're going to do the starter this time.
Sorry, you probably need to get started, right?
All right, so this has been OpenGov Hack Night. That concludes our broadcast for this evening, and we'll see you on the internets.